Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video I will be reviewing Carl Jung's Black Books, which I think is really interesting to do because even though the content of the Black Books has been written by Carl Jung between 1913 and 1932, the books they were not available to the general public until the end of 2020, and Sonu Shamdasani published an edited edition. And as the editor also indicated at the back of the book set, they were the most important unpublished work written by Carl Jung up until that point. And as you can see here, the books, they look really impressive, but also a bit intimidating. And this is not only because of their size, but also because they're quite expensive. And in this review, I will discuss whether it is worth it to buy your own copy of the Black Books. I will explain why you might want to buy them or why you might not want to buy them. So before going into the contents of the Black Books, it's also worth mentioning the design. They look amazing, and merely because of this they would already be an interesting addition to your bookshelf. Even the pages, they look really interesting, and the paper also feels really comfortable. And although the Black Books appear to contain a lot of pages, it must be noted that approximately the first half of each of the volumes, except for the first volume, consists of a copy of the original handwritten version of Carl Jung, which you can actually show you here. This is the second volume, and at the beginning you have a copy of the original handwritten version, and then at the end you can find the translated version. And even though it's really interesting to see this original handwritten version, I'm not really sure whether it adds a lot of value. Firstly, because it's all in German, and even if you can read German, it's still quite a challenge because Carl Jung's handwriting was not that clear. So now more about the content. The first of the 7 volumes of the Black Books consists of an extensive introduction written by the editor. The original first volume was written by Carl Jung during his childhood and is considered to be of less interest to the reader. As a result, the editor decided to replace the first volume with an introduction, therefore the other volumes could maintain their original numbering. I believe that their introduction was written extremely well. It really adds a lot of value. Because throughout the introduction the editor explains the events in Carl Jung's life which led up to the creation of the Black Books, and he also dedicated quite a lot of time explaining more about the writing process itself. And after the introduction, the second volume begins with the writing of Carl Jung on the 12th of November 1913. And in case you're interested in learning more about what each separate volume was about, you can find a video on my YouTube channel of each separate volume as well. So I believe there are several reasons why the contents of the Black Books might interest us. In my opinion, 2 are the most important. So firstly, as the editor indicated as well, the Black Books, they offer a unique insight into the developments of the thoughts and the ideas of one of the most important psychologists to have ever lived. The editor stated that the Black Books form the core of analytical psychology and enable its historical genesis to be studied from its inception. Secondly, Carl Jung, by writing the Black Books, attempted to connect with his own self, but also indicated how every other individual could do so as well. I believe that in case you've already read a lot of Carl Jung's other books, or are interested in his ideas, then the first point might already be a good enough reason to consider reading the Black Books. Throughout the volumes of the Black Books, we can clearly see how some of Carl Jung's most important ideas were developed. And in case you're interested in how you can apply the ideas of Carl Jung to your own life, then reading the Black Books is a great idea as well. Carl Jung, he documented his own inner journey in a way that almost no one has ever been able to do so previously. And from the discoveries of his journey, we can also learn a lot about ourselves, and they might inspire us to undertake a similar kind of journey. As the editor indicated, as a document, humane and psychological record, the Black Books chart Jung's attempt to resolve the 20th century crisis of meaning in his own person, and distill from this a means through psychotherapy for others to do likewise. However, it must also be noted that Carl Jung's imagination took him to some extremely dark and distant places as well, and these interest me a lot personally, but I can understand that they may not be of interest to everyone, and as a result some parts of the Black Books might not be for everyone, especially volume 6 and 7, which I also found a lot harder to digest. So at the beginning I indicated that the black books from their appearance appear to be really intimidating. Luckily this is not entirely the case, because a major part of the pages consist of a copy of the original handwritten version, and therefore actually it does not take as long to read through all of the volumes as one might expect. The black books, they are however intimidating in quite a different way. Carl Jung, he delves extremely deep into the depths of his own psyche, and thereby brings to the surface several long forgotten aspects of the self, which might appear oddly familiar to the reader. And in my opinion, this is exactly what makes the black books worth reading. They document an intense and deep personal journey, which somehow relates to our own personal journeys. It must be noted, however, that in order to really appreciate the contents of the black books, some previous knowledge of the ideas of Carl Jung is desirable. I must admit that for me personally, even after reading almost all of Carl Jung's books, the last two volumes, they were really difficult to comprehend. However, I believe that it will be interesting to experience reading the black books again in a few years to see whether they make more sense then. As such, I must conclude that in case you're interested in Carl Jung's ideas and possess at least some basic knowledge about these ideas, then the black books are definitely worth reading. We come to understand Carl Jung's ideas better, because we can also really see how they developed in the first place. You must note, however, that considering the size and the price of the black books, I think it would be really interesting to see a reader's edition of the black books, similar to the reader's edition of the Red Book. So the Red Book, when it was first published, was also a really big book, which was also really expensive. And then eventually the same editor as the editor of the black books published this reader's edition, which is a lot cheaper and also a lot easier to read because of its size. So I hope that they will also publish such a version of the black books in the future as well. So I hope that this review might help you a bit in deciding whether to buy your own copy of the black books or not. In the following weeks I will also post a full summary of all of the main ideas of the black books. So in case you're interested in this, then please also consider subscribing to this YouTube channel. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video as well.